two of the richest men in the world, drove Big Bazaar from a market cap of Rs 26,000 crores to almost zero. In 2020, Kishore Biyani's Future Retail, the company that owns the Big Bazaar chain of stores, was on the verge of declaring bankruptcy. It was unable to pay its dues of over 19,000 crore rupees to the banks and 6,000 crore rupees to the vendors. Mukesh Ambani's Reliance Retail saw this as an opportunity to expand their footprint in retail. And in August 2020, he offered to buy out Future Retail for 24,000 crore rupees. However, when the deal was almost about to go through, it saw an objection from an unexpected entity, Amazon. You see, in 2019, Amazon acquired a 49% stake in Future Coupons, which was a stakeholder in the main company Future Retail. But interestingly, this deal also included a very specific clause. This clause gave Amazon the first right of refusal to purchase more stake in Future Retail. What this meant was that if Future Retail or any of its promoters intended to sell their shares anytime in the future after the deal went through in 2019, Amazon would have the first opportunity to buy them before they were offered to any other potential buyers. Future Retail could sell its shares to someone else only if Amazon refuses to buy them. So when Future Retail went to Reliance to sell all of its shares, Amazon blocked the deal and said it had the legal right to own Future Retail's shares. See, this was a part of a much larger game for Amazon and Reliance. India is one of the biggest retail markets globally, and both Amazon and Reliance wanted to consolidate their footprint in this segment. And to each of these two companies, Big Bazaar was a key to establishing a strong presence in Indian retail market. And just like that, Reliance and Amazon began a legal battle that is still ongoing. And Future Retail was left with over 30,000 crore rupees of debt and no way to pay it whatsoever. But Mota Bhai was not going to back down so easily. The business model of Future Retail was such that it used to rent all the properties where it had its outlets. But by 2020, Future Retail was in debt and it was unable to pay the rent for its Big Bazaar and other brand outlets. So Reliance had stepped in, leased the properties from the landlords, and then subleased them back to Future Retail. So essentially, everything about these stores remained the same, except that now, instead of renting all these properties from different landlords, Future Retail was renting all these properties from Reliance. And when Mukesh Ambani realized that he was not going to get those Big Bazaar outlets, he used the back door instead. In March 2022, Reliance suddenly said that Future Retail had been defaulting on their rent payments, and they were immediately terminating the lease agreement of 950 stores of Future Retail. This included 342 large stores like Big Bazaar and FBB, and 493 small stores like Easy Day and Heritage. These stores accounted for over 65% of the overall sales of Future Retail. And then, after terminating the lease agreement, Reliance simply rebranded these Big Bazaar and other stores as Reliance Retail Stores, while keeping the same staff, the same store setup, and the same format. Big Bazaar officials were caught completely unaware as Reliance officials simply went to these stores one morning, seized their property, and told everyone that they would now be working for Reliance Retail. Amazon was left absolutely stunned as they helplessly witnessed all of this. Suddenly, the Big Bazaar stores were gone, and the court cases and legal battles were left pointless as nothing was left to fight over. But how did things get here? If you have made it this far, please subscribe to my channel. I promise my content will add value for you. Moving on. On one hand, Kishore Biyani is still known as the father of modern retail in India and commands a cult following. While on the other hand, there are vendors who accuse him of being a fraud and fleeing with their money on public videos. So what is the real story? And how did the biggest retail chain in India become insolvent? Well, it all begins with the journey of Kishore Biyani himself. Biyani was born into a Rajasthani business family, and he forayed into the sale of ready-made apparel with the start of Pantaloons in 1997. Pantaloons was a one-of-its-kind store back then that offered a one-stop shop for all your fashion needs. While similar stores like Zudio and Shoppers Shop are quite common now, when Pantaloons launched, it was a very new concept in India. It was a significant shift from the traditional bazaars and small shops that dominated Indian retail back then. Pantaloons was a runaway success, and Biyani rapidly started expanding this chain with several new outlets all across India. But he was not satisfied. He realized that Indian households likely allocate less than 10% of their overall spending on apparel, and he wanted to capture the remaining share of the pie as well. He wanted to sell not just clothes and apparel, but everything under the sun. And in 2001, he was inspired to launch the first of its kind mega retail store in India named Big Bazaar. It's important to note here that while many think that Big Bazaar was inspired by the Walmart chain of stores in the US, the reality was quite different and had nothing to do with the US. Kishore Biyani wanted to bring the experience of traditional Indian hard bazaars under the roof of a departmental store. He believed that the principles guiding the US market and the Indian market were very different from each other. The US is less than 300 years old, while our recorded history spans more than 3,000 years. And while the US is a homogeneous market, India is extremely heterogeneous, where the culture, food, and language changes every few hundred kilometers. Americans have always lived in abundance, with a market that is based on high consumption and large portions, while Indians have largely lived in shortages. So there is a general belief that high consumption is not a good thing, and that you should control your spending and consumption. So what works in the US may not work in India, since Indians are highly sensitive to price more than anything else. So Kishore Biyani built large stores that offered a wide range of products like groceries, electronics, home appliances, and obviously apparel. And he started selling these products at prices that were absolutely unbelievable. Campaigns like the Sabse Saste Din sales on Republic Day offered products at such a cheap price that there were literal traffic jams outside Big Bazaar stores. But how did they manage to sell these products at such a cheap price and still make a profit? Well, that was because he was applying the concept of deep discounting. Let's suppose that the Kirana store near you sells a packet of lace for Rs 20 each. And he is getting this packet from the wholesaler at Rs 15 each, giving him a profit of Rs 5 per packet. If he sells 1000 packets in a month, then his net profit will be Rs 5000. Now let's suppose that Big Bazaar is also getting the packet for Rs 15 each, and it starts selling it at a discounted price of Rs 18 instead of Rs 20. But it is able to sell 10,000 packets in a month simply because it is providing a discount to its customers and selling more. So the net profit of Big Bazaar would be Rs 30,000, which is 5 times that of the average Kirana store. And not just this, but as Big Bazaar opens more and more stores and sells more and more packets of Lays, economies of scale kick in, where it can now go directly to Lays and ask for a discount on the buying price. So it will start getting the same packet of Lays for Rs 12 instead of Rs 15, saving another Rs 3 per packet. That is a 100% increase in profit. And that was still not all. As the volumes continued to climb, Big Bazaar started introducing its own brand labels for items such as ketchup and dishwash liquids, which further increased the profit margins for them. And coupled with that, Kishore Biyani focused on turning Big Bazaar outlets into not just shopping destinations, but social avenues where people wanted to spend their time. These outlets were usually opened in giant malls or shopping complexes right in the center of the cities. And there were special sales over the weekends, as Biyani wanted people to spend their Saturdays and Sundays with their families at Big Bazaar, like it was a social outing and not a household chore. He even added entertainment sections and food stations in these outlets to ensure that people had everything they wanted right in their Big Bazaar outlets themselves. The idea was very simple. You get people to spend as much time in the stores as possible, and the time spent is directly converted into the amount spent at the store. Fueled by Kishore Biyani's ambition and the need to establish large volumes to get low prices, Big Bazaar and Future Retail grew very rapidly. From its very first outlet in 2001, it had more than 300 outlets by 2019. Within 22 days of launching their first store in 2001, they already had 3 Big Bazaar outlets in different parts of the country. And this rapid expansion came at a cost. The focus on deep discounting and high volumes was successful in attracting a large customer base, but it also meant that Future Retail was operating on razor-thin profit margins. They needed consistent and substantial revenue growth to sustain their business model, which relied heavily on economies of scale and opening up new stores. But Future Retail was already working with low profit margins, so there was only one way to generate capital for opening these new stores, and that was debt. In his attempt to create a retail behemoth, Biyani started lending heavily to finance his expansion. And as the number of stores increased, so did the overall debt on the balance sheet of Future Retail. By 2011, Pantaloons alone had a debt of rupees 4,350 crores, and it had to be sold off to the Aditya Birla Group for rupees 1,600 crores to manage this debt. But it was still not enough, as the debt and the interest on that debt continued to mount, reaching rupees 5,800 crores by 2015. But Kishore Biyani was a big believer in offline retail, and he thought that the debt was still manageable and a part of the business. He also thought that expansion was the only way to grow his business, as he continued to expand and made a string of acquisitions, starting with Nilgiri in 2014 for rupees 300 crores, Easy Day in 2015 for rupees 500 crores, Heritage Fresh in 2016, Hypercity for rupees 650 crores in 2017, and E-Zone in 2018. And all of these were purchased by debt. And by September 2019, just before COVID, their total debt stood at a whopping 12,778 crore rupees. At this point, Future Group's balance sheet was a ticking time bomb that would have snapped with the smallest disruption. And then, the most unexpected disruption came in March 2020 with the arrival of COVID. Due to the strict lockdown, the stores were closed and not a single sale was made. And suddenly, Future Group's revenue from operations went from thousands of crore rupees to literally zero. However, this does not mean that the debt went away. Banks and lenders were still demanding their money, with crores of additional interest accumulating every single month during the lockdown. In 3 months, they lost sales of rupees 7,000 crores, and recovering from this loss and debt was simply not possible. Eventually, Future Retail had no other option but to sell off its entire business to clear its debt and liabilities. That was where Reliance came in and the legal saga began, which we discussed at the start of this video. So right now, Reliance practically owns all of Future Retail's major stores as Amazon fights in court over nothing. But does this mean that the deep discounts stopped in India and people went back to traditional stores? No, it does not. Big Bazaar was already dethroned well before it filed for insolvency by a man named Radhakrishna Damani. He started his first D-Mart store back in 2002 in Mumbai. And presently, the D-Mart chain has over 340 stores all across India. But the most impressive part about D-Mart is not its price or its number of stores, but its debt, because it literally does not exist on the balance sheet. While Big Bazaar drowned in debt and Reliance Retail, the next competitor of D-Mart, has a debt of over 37,500 crore rupees, D-Mart's debt is virtually zero. And not just that, but it also had one of the highest operating profit margins in the industry at 5.3%, while Reliance Retail lags at just 2.6%. So what is it that Big Bazaar could have learned from D-Mart to run a sustainable retail chain? Well, firstly, and this is the biggest factor, is that D-Mart owns all of the properties where it runs its stores. Recall how a major part of Future Retail's struggle was over the payment of rent for its outlets. While Big Bazaar and Reliance Retail rent small stores averaging about 2,000 square feet in area, D-Mart buys huge property spaces averaging 40,000 square feet in area. And while Big Bazaar stores were in malls and densely populated areas, D-Mart builds its stores in standalone structures where population density is high, but real estate is relatively cheaper. For a normal retail store, rent can eat up to 7% of their revenue. But for D-Mart, this was a one-time expense that actually ended up generating an asset in the form of real estate. Now at this point, you might be thinking why others do not take this route, right? Well, that is because this route requires a lot of initial capital and it is very slow. The Biyanis and Ambanis want growth and expansion at all costs. And at that level of ambition, patience tends to take the backseat. After opening its first store in 2002, D-Mart had just 25 stores by 2010. That is just 3 new stores every single year. Recall that Big Bazaar, on the other hand, opened 3 stores in 22 days. Other than this, D-Mart also uses economies of scale and deep discounting to offer unbelievably low prices to its customers. But it does not end here. D-Mart only stocks high-selling items in its inventory, which means that the inventory turnaround time, or the time in which a store can sell and replenish all of its inventory, is much lower than its competitors. While the inventory turnaround time for Reliance Retail is 287 days, it is just 148 days for D-Mart. Which means that if both Reliance Retail and D-Mart get 1,000 pieces of lace, D-Mart will be able to sell it off and become ready to order new inventory in just 148 days. while Reliance will take 287 days to clear the same inventory. So because of this, while the revenue earned per square feet of its space for Big Bazaar was rupees 12,000, this amount is rupees 31,000 for DMart. The result is that not only DMart sells more unit per product, but it is also able to pay its vendors much more quickly. While the industry norm in retail is to pay vendors 30 to 40 days after delivery of goods, DMart has a reputation for clearing its dues within 7 days. Radhakrishna Damani's basic principle with DMart has been the exact opposite of Kishore Biyani's future retail. Damani focuses on keeping the unit economics of the business profitable. You cannot drown in debt if you are patient and fuel your growth with profits, such that there is no debt to begin with. As of today, Reliance has practically replaced Big Bazaar, and the share price of future retail is down from Rs 640 at its peak to just 3.6 rupees today. If you made it this far, please hit the subscribe button and follow me on LinkedIn. The link is in the description below. Until I see you in the next video, goodbye.